The stars above the planet Terethia burned like dying embers. Every city below was turning into ashes. The once proud towers now glowed red under the rain of plasma fire. The Vorn Dominion had come without warning, their fleets like a swarm of metal locusts devouring everything that moved. Their goal was not conquest but extermination. High in the orbit of the collapsing world, Commander Lurian stood on the bridge of his shattered command ship. His 4 silver eyes filled with helpless fury. His crew moved in silence, watching their scanners as Vorn destroyers filled the system. There was no chance left. Their defense grid was broken. The last planet shields had fallen, and no one in the galaxy dared to help the Terethians. The Galactic empires had seen this before. The Dominion's cruelty was known across the stars. Yet none risked intervention. To defy the Vorn was to invite death. The Terethians had once been allies to many, but now all channels remained cold. "Send the signal," Lurian whispered, his voice trembling. His communications officer turned in disbelief. "Sir, to whom?" he asked. "To anyone who will listen," Lurian said. Even the dead stars, they activated the emergency beacon. An ancient design, older than most of the modern networks. It pulsed across the void, through nebula clouds, asteroid belts, and forgotten sectors. The message carried one desperate line. "This is Terethia, under extinction assault. Requesting any help, any species, any world. Light years away, on a silent rock orbiting Earth's moon." An old array came alive. It was called the Luna Deep Receiver. Buried in dust and forgotten by most of Earth's people, but not by the Defense Command, hidden deep beneath the surface of the Earth. The command network monitored all cosmic frequencies. The old array hadn't received a foreign signal in centuries. Until now, alarms flickered across the lunar base. Automated systems blinked awake. Dusty consoles hummed. AI sent alerts directly to Earth's orbital defense hubs. A code name appeared on the central display. Omega Protocol initiated, on Earth. Deep under the Pacific Ocean, the United Earth Defense Council gathered in an emergency session. Massive holographic screens displayed the alien distress call repeating over and over. The sound was haunting, a strange melodic tone followed by static, and then the voice of Commander Lurian crying for help. For a moment, the room remained silent. Humanity had kept itself hidden for over 3,000 years. They had withdrawn from galactic politics after the Silence Accords, letting alien empires believe Earth was dormant. But in truth, humanity had never been idle. They had built weapons and fleets beyond imagination, buried deep in the blackness of space. General Amina Kor stood at the center of the council chamber, her uniform carrying the insignia of the Terran Dreadnought Command. She looked at the projection of the burning alien world. "They're dying," she said softly, "and no one will come for them." President Orion Hale turned toward her, his face grim. "You know what it means if we answer that call," he said. "The whole galaxy will know we still exist." Amina nodded slowly. "Yes, but it also means something else," she said. "They'll know that we still remember mercy." Across Earth's orbital docks, ancient machinery stirred. In the darkness of the asteroid belt, hangars began to open, revealing enormous warships, sleek, black, and shaped like blades. They were the dreadnoughts of the Eclipse Armada, powered by stellar cores and guided by AI that once mapped galaxies. Their names were whispered like myths: Sol Invictus, Leviathan, Prometheus, Dauntless, and Iron Dawn. Engineers who had trained their entire lives for a war that never came now moved like lightning. Corridors filled with the sound of awakening reactors. Each dreadnought was capable of burning a continent in a single strike. But their purpose was not destruction. It was deterrence, protection. Inside the flagship Sol Invictus, Captain Mara Vance stood on the bridge watching as power surged through the systems. Her ship had slept for 700 years. Now it was alive again. "Where's the signal origin?" she asked. Her navigation officer replied. "Outer rim, Delta 9 sector distance, 42 light years." "Prepare the jump drive," she said, her voice calm but filled with resolve. "If they called for help, then we will answer." Across the stars, the Terethians fought their last stand. Lurian watched the last of his cruisers explode into fragments. The main city of Sarenth collapsed into a sea of fire, and the Vorn ships moved closer. His communications officer reported, "Signal has been sent." No response detected. Lurian closed his eyes. "Then we die as Terethians," he said. "Let the stars remember that we called for help." But far away, deep in the silence of human space, massive engines began to glow. The dreadnoughts aligned in formation, And for the first time in 3 millennia, humanity prepared for war on the moon. An automated voice echoed through the comms. Distress signal received. Activating Project Eclipse. As the fleet prepared to launch, Captain Vance gave the order that would shake the galaxy. Set course for Terethia, she said. Engage all ships. Space rippled, stars bent, and the first Terran dreadnoughts vanished into the darkness, following the faint echo of a desperate alien cry. The galaxy had forgotten humanity, but the cry for help had awakened something ancient, something unstoppable. Earth had heard the call, and the Deathworlders were coming. The dreadnought Sol Invictus cut through the void like a silent storm. Her hull shimmered with the light of distant suns. Thousands of human crew members moved across decks that had not echoed with footsteps for centuries. The awakening of the Terran Armada had begun, and the universe had no idea what was coming. Inside the command chamber, Captain Mara Vance stood before the holomap. Dozens of red markers represented the Vorn Dominion's fleets converging on Terethia. She stared for a long moment before saying, "We're late, but not too late." Her voice calm yet heavy with meaning. The communications officer turned toward her. "Ma'am, message from the United Earth Defense Council. Authorization to engage confirmed." Mara nodded. "Then let's remind the stars who we are, back on Earth." The council chamber was a storm of activity. Hundreds of officers, AI advisors, and diplomats watched as massive screens displayed fleet movements. The president leaned forward, his eyes fixed on the dreadnought icons accelerating toward Terethia. "They'll know we're back," he said quietly. General Amina Kor replied, "Let them know. Let them all see what happens when humanity wakes." Her tone was both grim and proud. Centuries of restraint were now giving way to the old spirit of Earth, the same one that had once faced extinction and refused to fall. Across the solar system, more dreadnoughts joined formation, 20 in total, each the size of a small moon, their names etched into history and legend. Crews whispered prayers and stories as the engines roared to life. Old soldiers wept seeing the lights ignite again. Some had trained their entire lives for a war that never came. And now destiny called in deep space. Sol Invictus led the way. The ship's AI, designated Helios, spoke in its calm synthetic tone. "Jump calibration complete. Targeting coordinates locked." Mara gave a small nod. "Then light the void," she said. A surge of energy expanded from the dreadnought's core, and in an instant, the fleet vanished. Folding through dimensions humanity had once sworn never to cross again. When they reappeared, they entered a nightmare. Terethia was burning, half the planet already covered in smoke. Debris fields stretched across orbit. Broken ships drifting silently. Vorn warships surrounded what was left of the planet like vultures around a dying prey. "Multiple hostiles detected," Helios reported. "Dominion fleet strength, 1,000 vessels." Mara took a deep breath. "And how many are we?" she asked. 20 dreadnoughts," the AI answered. "Statistically unfavorable," she smiled faintly. "Good, I like those odds." Back on Terethia's surface, Commander Lurian sat in the ruins of his bridge, his ship barely functioning, life support failing. His communications officer shouted, "Sir, new contacts detected. Unidentified drive signatures inbound." Lurian frowned, expecting more Vorn reinforcements. But then the scanners filled with impossible readings. Mass reading. Immense gravitational distortions. Unknown technology, the officer stammered. And then, the sky broke. Terethia's upper atmosphere split apart as the first Terran dreadnought descended. Its shadow covered entire cities. The hum of its engines shook the air. Lightning crackled around its hull. Alien soldiers looked up in disbelief, their weapons lowering as a new sun seemed to rise above them. "Identify." Lurin shouted, "Who are they?" The answer came in the form of fire. Sol Invictus launched a single beam of pure plasma. It carved through 3 Vorn destroyers in one sweep. Their reactors detonated like falling stars. The shockwave shattered the clouds, and for the first time, the Terethians saw something new. Hope inside the Vorn command ship. Admiral Kryn watched the impossible spectacle unfold. "Those ships, they're not ours," he said in horror. "Who dares?" One of his officers shouted, "Who dares attack the Dominion?" Kryn turned pale as another dreadnought appeared beside Sol Invictus. Its hull marked with 2 words, "Human Fleet." The human voice came through all channels, calm and precise. "This is Captain Mara Vance of the Terran dreadnought Sol Invictus. By the order of the United Earth Council, cease your attack or be destroyed." The Vorn officers looked at one another, stunned. "Earth? one of them muttered. But the Terrans vanished long ago. Kryn's face twisted. Then they've returned to die, he hissed. All ships fire. Thousands of plasma bolts lit up the void, but none found their mark. Sol Invictus's shields absorbed the energy like mist against steel, and then humanity answered from the Dreadnought's underbellies. Countless silvery pods launched, void spears, kinetic projectiles traveling near light speed. In seconds, entire Vorn cruisers disintegrated, their command relays cut off. Panic spread through the Dominion ranks in the chaos. The Terethian survivors watched as blue light streaked across the heavens, striking with surgical precision. The attackers who once seemed unstoppable were now being torn apart. The sound of human weaponry echoed through their skies like thunder from ancient gods. Commander Lurian fell to his knees, whispering, "Who are they?" One of his officers answered softly, "Deathworlders. It must be them." On the bridge of Sol Invictus, Captain Vance watched the last of the enemy fleet retreating. She turned to her comms officer. "Send a signal to the surface," she said. "Message, assistance inbound. You are not alone." As her voice carried through the channels, Terethian civilians heard the transmission echo in their damaged radios. Mothers holding their children looked to the sky, tears mixing with ash. They saw light piercing through the clouds, human dreadnoughts forming protective orbit around their dying planet. For the first time in thousands of years, humanity had intervened, and the galaxy would never forget the moment Earth's silence ended. The humans had not just responded to a distress call, they had declared their return to the stars, and in that single act, the balance of galactic power began to tremble. Earth was awake, and Mercy now had a fleet. The galaxy had never witnessed such a sight, not in living memory, not since the old wars that faded into legend. The void around Terethia was now a storm of light and fury. 20 Terran dreadnoughts stood against 1,000 Dominion ships, and yet the battle was one-sided. It was not a fight. It was an awakening. Each human dreadnought was a fortress of ancient design, carved from neutron-forged alloys, surrounded by energy fields that shimmered like halos. Their weapons struck faster than sensors could track. Their shields drank enemy fire like water through sand. To the Terethians watching from below, the sky looked alive, burning with the fury of human vengeance. Commander Lurian, aboard his crippled command ship, watched in stunned silence. "They fight like gods," he whispered. The last surviving officers around him stared through shattered viewports, their scanners unable to measure the human ship's power output. "They are rewriting physics," someone murmured far above. The bridge of Sol Invictus glowed with tactical readouts. Captain Mara Vance stood calm amid chaos, her voice steady. "Target sectors Alpha through Epsilon. Unleash broadside arrays. Helios." The AI confirmed. Firing pattern locked. Synchronized with fleet formation. The dreadnoughts moved in unison, hundreds of kilometers apart yet perfectly aligned. Like dancers of destruction, their weapons ignited in a synchronized strike. Spears of white plasma tore through space, each impact silent but devastating. Vorn warships cracked open like glass, their cores igniting into miniature suns. Shockwaves rippled through the void, and enemy formations collapsed within seconds. "Admiral Kryn's flagship detected," Helios announced. "Vorn reinforcements inbound from Sector Delta. 3 minutes to range." Mara's eyes narrowed. "We end this before they arrive," she said. "All forward dreadnoughts. Converge and burn." The Dominion's reinforcements never made it to the battlefield. As they entered system space, Dauntless and Prometheus emerged from hyperslip directly above them, launching fusion lances that split their fleet in half within moments. What was once the terror of the galaxy was reduced to wreckage drifting in silence. Inside Kryn's flagship, panic spread like wildfire, shields collapsing. "Hull breaches across decks," his officers shouted. "Impossible!" Their weapons, no radiation signature. Kryn slammed his fist on the console. "It's forbidden technology, they broke the accord." But his words faded as his ship's sensors locked onto Sol Invictus, one massive human dreadnought turning slowly toward him. "Open a channel," he barked, his voice cracking. Static filled the air, and then a calm human voice came through. "This is Captain Mara Vance. Your fleet has violated Article 01 of Galactic Concord, targeting non-combatants. Surrender immediately or be neutralized." Kryn laughed bitterly. "You think your handful of relics can frighten the Dominion?" He sneered. "You are dust from an old world. Forgotten by history?" Mara's gaze hardened. "History remembers us differently," she said softly. Helios, fire. A beam of light brighter than a sunrise engulfed Kryn's ship. It vanished instantly, leaving only a glowing scar in space where the Dominion's command vessel once stood. The remaining Vorn ships broke formation. Scattering in panic, the Terran armada did not pursue. They simply stood in orbit, silent and unmoving. On the surface of Terethia, survivors emerged from the ruins. Eyes fixed on the heavens, the alien people who had expected death now saw salvation. Enormous shadows passed over their skies. Human dreadnoughts moving into protective orbit, glowing blue under their planetary lights. In the Terethian capital's underground shelter, a little girl tugged at her mother's sleeve, pointing at the glowing ships above. "Are they angels?" she whispered. Her mother, tears streaming down her face, nodded slowly. "Something like that, my child, something like that." Back aboard Sol Invictus, Helios broke the silence. All hostiles neutralized. Atmospheric radiation levels stable. Terethian distress signal terminated. Mara exhaled deeply. "Patch me through to all planetary channels," she ordered. Her voice echoed across every speaker, every radio, every surviving communication link on Terethia. "This is Captain Mara Vance of the Terran Dreadnought Fleet," she said, her tone both calm and commanding. "Your SOS has been answered. Assistance is here. Remain where you are. Medical and relief teams are inbound." The message spread like light through the darkness. The last remnants of the Terethian defense network transmitted it to the galaxy. And within hours, every major civilization knew the Deathworlders had returned. Across the galactic core, empires paused their transmissions. Trading guilds halted operations and ancient councils reconvened. Whispers spread through every system. "Earth lives," they said, and their ships walked the stars once more. On the outer rim, a small mining colony caught the transmission. An old alien veteran stared at the hologram of human ships burning through the Vorn fleet. His hands trembled. "I fought them once," he muttered. "I thought they were gone." The young worker beside him frowned. "Who are they?" The old veteran looked at him with fear in his eyes. "They are the Deathworlders," he said. "The only species that turned extinction into evolution." Back in orbit, Sol Invictus hovered silently over Terethia, her hull reflecting the broken sunlight of a saved world. Captain Vance looked out into the stars, her voice soft but resolute. "We answered one call," she said. "But now the galaxy will start watching again," Helios replied. "Observation protocols suggest increased interstellar tension." She smiled faintly. "Good," she whispered. "Let them remember why the Terrans slept." In the distance, the wreckage of the Dominion fleet drifted into the void, glowing faintly as if warning the universe that something ancient had stirred again. Humanity had returned to the stars, not as conquerors but as guardians, and every empire now trembled at the thought. If this was their mercy, what would their wrath look like? The galaxy was no longer silent. The aftermath of Terethia's rescue had rippled through every communication channel in known space. Billions of transmissions flooded the networks, each one echoing the same impossible truth. Humanity had returned. In the Terethian orbit, the debris of the Dominion fleet drifted like metallic ghosts, silent reminders of an empire's arrogance. The human dreadnoughts remained in formation, their engines pulsing softly like hearts of sleeping giants. Below them, the wounded planet shimmered with new hope. Emergency lights and rescue ships descending through the clouds. Captain Mara Vance stood on the bridge of Sol Invictus, her eyes fixed on the main display. Dozens of civilian distress beacons blinked across the surface. "Deploy med teams and terraform drones," she ordered. "Priority on hospitals and shelters." Her voice calm yet filled with quiet authority. "Acknowledged," replied Helios, the AI. Humanitarian protocol initiated. Moments later, the first drop pods descended from orbit. Sleek silver cylinders piercing through the smoky skies. Each carried medical drones, food replicators, and human medics in full gear. As they landed across the ruined cities, the Terethians watched in disbelief. Their so-called saviors didn't demand tribute or surrender. They brought aid. They brought healing in the ruins of Sarenth City. Commander Lurian limped through the ash-covered streets. He stopped when he saw a human medic kneeling beside a Terethian child. The woman's face was covered by a clear helmet, her eyes kind but firm as she treated the alien wounds. "You came for us," Lurian whispered, his voice breaking. The medic looked up. "You called for help," she said simply, "and we answered." Back aboard Sol Invictus, The council of ship captains gathered around the hollow table. A live feed of Terethia's surface projected before them. General Amina Kaur appeared via secure link from Earth, her tone sharp and serious. Every major empire has received footage of the battle. Hundreds of their probes are now watching your position. Mara nodded. Let them watch, she replied. They'll need to understand what this means. Helios flickered as new data streamed in. Incoming hails from multiple sectors, the AI reported. Requests for diplomatic contact, peace assurances, and offers of tribute, Mara frowned. Tribute? She repeated. We didn't come for that. Yet they fear you, Helios said. Fear has always been the galaxy's first language. Mara turned toward the panoramic viewport. The distant suns reflecting across the Dreadnought's hull. She took a slow breath. Then we'll teach them a new one, she said. One they can't ignore. She moved toward the communications console, her gloved fingers brushing the controls. Open a galaxy-wide transmission, she ordered. Helios hesitated. Scope? Universal, she said. Every frequency, every known relay. The system hummed. Energy crackled across antennas and relay nodes, and a moment later, the Terran seal appeared on screens across the galaxy. An image not seen in over 3 millennia. A single blue sphere surrounded by stars, the symbol of Earth. Then her voice came clear and calm, carrying through every sector, every empire, every home. This is Captain Mara Vance of the Terran Dreadnought Fleet. We have received the distress call from the Terethian system. Assistance has been provided. The aggressors have been neutralized. Her voice echoed across space through stations and ships and palaces. But she didn't stop there. Her tone shifted, soft yet commanding. To all sentient civilizations, know this. Earth still watches. We are not conquerors. We are not rulers. But we remember what happens when mercy is mistaken for weakness. The line carried a quiet threat that chilled even those who ruled galaxies. Her next words turned that chill into silence. The Deathworlders are awake, and we will not sleep again. For a full minute after the message ended, the galaxy held its breath. No empire dared to respond. Even the mighty Dominion worlds cut off external communications, fearing retribution. In the council chambers of the Galactic Union, delegates whispered nervously. They broke the accords, one said. Those ships, they should not exist, another hissed. If they have such power, what stops them from cleansing us all? A lone historian, older than most of them, raised his trembling voice. You fools, he said. They never sought conquest, they sought balance. The Terrans were the sword that kept us from devouring each other, and we forgot. Meanwhile, on Terethia, as aid ships covered the sky, Lurian gazed upward. The giant dreadnoughts hovering above looked like silent guardians. They sent us salvation, he said quietly, but also a warning. On Sol Invictus, Mara stood at the viewport watching the healing world below. She whispered to herself, one signal, one planet saved. But now the whole galaxy stirs. Helios replied softly. They will fear you, Captain. She nodded. Good, she said. Fear is honest, but in time, maybe they'll learn respect. Beyond the Terethian system, human reconnaissance ships spread across the void, collecting data, mapping forgotten sectors. The stars that had once ignored Earth now glowed brighter, as if the universe itself was watching what would come next. And somewhere deep within the Terran command on Earth, new orders were forming. Messages encrypted under the highest clearance, Project Horizon. The next phase of humanity's silent re-entry into the galactic stage. But for now the message had been sent and its echo would never fade. The galaxy had heard humanity speak once more, and the stars would remember the tone forever. The stars were no longer calm. What had begun as a single plea for help had now fractured the balance of an entire galaxy. Whispers of the Deathworlders' return echoed through trade hubs. Military outposts and royal courts, fear spread faster than light. And with it came something even more dangerous, respect. On Terethia, dawn broke over a planet that had nearly died. Survivors walked among ruins where human medics and drones worked tirelessly. Fields once turned to ash now glowed with reconstruction lights. Human terraforming pods released streams of nanite mist, rebuilding what had been lost. Everywhere the blue insignia of Earth was seen, a symbol of hope to some, a warning to others. Commander Lurian stood atop the balcony of the rebuilt Capitol Tower. His arm in a sling beside him stood Captain Mara Vance, the woman whose fleet had turned extinction into survival. Your world will live, she said quietly, looking at the sunrise. But it will take time. Lurian bowed his head. "We owe you everything," he said, his voice filled with emotion. "Your people saved us when no one else dared." Mara's expression softened. "We didn't come for debt," she said. "We came because someone had to." She looked at the sky where the dreadnoughts hovered like silent guardians, and because we remembered what it's like to be alone. High above, the Terran fleet maintained orbit, their shadows drifting over continents as they transmitted coded reports back to Earth. Inside the flagship Sol Invictus, Helios processed hundreds of transmissions from across the galaxy. "Captain," the AI said, "intelligence confirms rising unrest among the major empires. The Vorn Dominion has fractured, and several rim worlds are declaring independence." Mara nodded slowly. "The galaxy is afraid," she said. "They saw what we did with 20 ships," Helios replied. "Fear historically precedes diplomacy." Back on Earth, the United Council convened beneath the Pacific Dome. The chamber's walls lit with projections of galactic maps. The president stood before the gathered delegates. "The veil is lifted," he said. "The universe knows we're alive again." General Amina Kor stepped forward, her tone measured but resolute. "Then it's time to decide what humanity will become, spectator, savior, or sovereign." A murmur spread through the chamber. Diplomats argued some feared provoking another interstellar war. Others saw opportunity to restore balance to a galaxy ruled by fear. At last, the president spoke again. "For now we stand as watchers," he said. "But if they come for us, or for those who cannot defend themselves, we will answer again." The declaration was sent across every Terran command node. Encoded into fleet protocols, it was not a threat. It was a promise. In distant space, empires scrambled to react. The Vorn remnants hid their surviving fleets in deep sectors, their propaganda machines declaring lies about the Ghost Armada from the Forbidden World. The Galactic Union dispatched emissaries to Earth, hoping to negotiate terms of peace before panic spiraled into chaos. But their ships never reached Sol. They were intercepted by Terran defense networks and politely redirected. "Earth chooses its visitors," the automated message said, not the other way around. Meanwhile, across the rim colonies, a new name began to circulate among oppressed worlds. The Guardians of Sol, a name whispered by slaves, traders, and broken nations. They spoke of a fleet that answered cries for help, not for conquest, but for justice. The myth of the Deathworlders was evolving into legend once again. On Terithia, children played beneath restored lights, pointing at the sky where human ships drifted like silent constellations. Songs were written about the blue giants who descended from the stars, and in every city square, a monument rose, an engraved image of a human and a Terethian standing side by side beneath the Earth emblem. The inscription read, "We called into the void, and humanity answered." A week later, aboard Sol Invictus, Mara received a direct transmission from Earth. "Captain Vance," General Kor's voice echoed, "your fleet's actions have shifted galactic stability. Prepare for Phase 2, Mara straightened. "Understood, ma'am," she said. "What's our next objective?" Kor's tone was quiet but firm. "We're reactivating the old relay network, the one that connects every hidden Terran stronghold. It's time the galaxy learns there was never just one fleet." Helios processed the message, its circuits glowing softly. Multiple fleet signatures detected awakening in outer sectors, the AI confirmed. "Designation, Black Armadas." Mara smiled faintly. "The galaxy thought Terithia was our return," she said. "They have no idea what's coming next." As Sol Invictus turned toward the edge of the system, the fleet began to move, dreadnought engines igniting in perfect synchronization, their light reflecting across the surface of the healed planet like a second dawn. Below, Lurian looked up one last time. "They came from the silent stars," he whispered, "and they left us a promise." And far beyond the edge of Terethia's light, the human fleet vanished into the dark again, leaving behind a galaxy trembling between hope and terror. The Deathworlders had returned, and the universe would never sleep peacefully again.